Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Process. On today's episode, we have a duo from Warner Brothers' new take on the color purple, director Blitz Bazawule and costume designer Francine Jamison-Tanchuck.
First, I want us to go back to where it all begins for you. At what point in your life, in your career, as you're coming up, do you go, I have something special, and I can see costume, and I can create it, and I can tell story with it. At what point does it begin for you?
I think it began for me when I was a child, pretty much really so far back. I always loved the structure of how things were made, how clothing was made. And I started really sewing at 7 years old. My mother was wonderful. Who was really into stitch and crafts and all that. And she was saw that I had an interest, and she was showing me all different things about it. And I loved movies. It was amazing how the blending of my love for the structure of clothing, movies, and history. So it's just really kind of wonderful that I work on so many period films because of the historical value of them. And of course, just being creative with the clothing is just how things go together, how they're made together, and the fabrics we can use, and all the things that just to make that particular garment is just has always fascinated me.
I love that. Can you, is there a movie, Francine, that you go, I remember seeing this film, and this is how it made me feel, and it's continued to be a compass for me. Is there a movie like that for you?
Yes, there are two actually:
Got it.
Carmen Jones and
Wow.
Sayonara.
Wow. Tell me about them.
I just when of course I wasn't able to see Sayonara in the theaters, and when it was on television for me, I just thought the costumes were just, I was stunned. I was just so mesmerized by the culture, the costumes, and just how they really made me feel, and the culture. So it was, and the story was just so just heartwarming and heartening. So to really feel how the costumes um just influenced that, and it was really just, I was just so remembering it even to this day. And I was a child really when I saw that movie. And Carmen Jones was another, looking at Dorothy Dandridge and her and how beautiful she looked, and just the and that was a musical, so it was really kind of interesting how I went from Sayonara in a way, and Carmen Jones with that. And these are two films that really just influenced my scope, and I just have never forgotten them, even all these many years ago.
Wow. That's incredible. I kind of want to go back. You've told us a little bit about kind of this beginning of where the passion begins, cinema as a vehicle, the movies that have really influenced you. But my big curiosity, and we didn't get to talk about this much because we jumped right into work when
With
we
both feet.
started. Exactly, the deep end, by the way. But my curiosity is your big break. Like what would you say in this business? Like, spurned, without which you wouldn't be here. I'm curious about that.
I think really my big break was Glory as a costume designer, really catapulted me into the Costume Designers Guild. And interestingly, there there was a discussion about, well, a woman doing a Civil War film and a
Mhm.
young woman doing a Civil War film. It was kind of interesting. It's
Mm.
And so Ed Zwick really came to really to just speak on how, wait a minute, a woman, there were the women were at home sewing the uniforms, and they had a big, really wondering what was going to happen with their husbands, taking care of the farms, taking care of everything at home. So why not a woman, which Ed Zwick says? I think that would be an interesting thing to have, a woman doing a Civil War film. Why not?
Wow. And that question, of just why not becomes, how incremental progress is made, and so shout out to the brave people who always are willing to take a chance, because
Yes.
that's how we end up here. I wouldn't know you without that. And what a travesty the world robbed of your talent without these big breaks that you're talking about. Mike, so fun fact, this is kind of where it gets fun for the audience. I mean, The Color Purple 1985 is such a seminal, impactful piece of art. I mean, of course, it begins with Alice Walker's brilliant Pulitzer Prize winning book, and then kind of morphs into Steven Spielberg's film. And very few people know that you worked in a costume capacity on that film. It'll be lovely for you to tell the audience just how that came about.
Well, I have known Aggie Rogers, who was the costume designer in 1985 on The Color Purple. And in fact, Aggie was nominated for that particular film. Absolutely. In that year.
Yep.
And she knew that I had a love for period pieces. And she also is very instrumental as a mentor of mine to encourage young designers to just go for it, to really, jump in and just be creative with it. And she allowed me to do that with her. And I was not only doing the job, or whatever the job was in that particular era, as a supervisor, I was also pretty much doing the duties of an assistant costume designer as well. And the scope of that film, and Aggie really wanted to be on the set most of the times, because of things that were changing, and she wanted to be there, of course, as designer on set, on really there and on hand. So she wanted to have someone that she can trust back in the department that could say, oh, of course, Aggie's, I was a final say, but she would also say, Franny, I don't have time really, just you go for it, do what you do, and let's just get it done. And I was just really excited about that. It was such a remarkable piece of work, and with Alice Walker's just inspirational novel, it just touches my heartstrings even today. So it was really good for this particular project to come up. And when I was offered the project, I thought, wow, it's just almost a full circle in a way.
What a full circle moment. I mean, again,
to come back around and to be the costume designer on such a just incredible movie. So
amazing.
It was, I just thought it was kismet.
beautifully segued into our work together. And so I want to go back to your first impressions when we first spoke about this bold new vision. Did you go home and go, this guy's crazy?
No, I went home
What
and
was
thought,
your
I
what
would
was
love
your
to work with this person because
mm,
he just seems so talented and creative. And
mm,
I just felt that your vision of the Color Purple 2023 to me just it was challenging, but I love challenges. I love breaking out of a box. And I thought, wow, this guy is so talented. I'm just really excited about working with you.
wow. Well, thank you, because I felt exactly the same, and you know, so now we can kind of talk more about our specific work and just kind of the intentionality that went into things. And I remember part of our early conversations had to do with, you know, and just for full disclosure, this was my first major studio film, right? So it came with a lot of things I didn't know, and certainly also my first musical. I didn't know about the medium necessarily. I've been a musician for many years, but didn't know the medium of musicals exactly. But I feel like one of our early conversations was you explaining to me because the costumes weren't going to be used in the normal narrative way, the things that the augmentations that had to happen with the actual costuming to make them functional. So I'd love for you to kind of just, you know, just take our audience through some of the changes, some of the kind of the things that you had to do to make this. I mean, we had, first of all, just massive, you know,
Yeah,
dance numbers.
absolutely
Yeah. So,
massive.
yeah, please
And
take
I
us
think
through
a
that.
lot of too what the challenges for me, for our costume department, but especially for me, was uh the musical itself, the dancers, because they were changing out so often, and that was no one's fault at all. I mean, it was Fatima Robinson, who is an excellent, incredible choreographer. Let's give a shout out to her. She did her best to keep the same dancers for certain particular numbers, but it was just difficult. And so what I had to do was, and then a lot of the dancers were not set. Some of the
Mhm,
actors weren't quite set,
mhm.
but you and I knew what those garments were going to look like. So
Yes.
I just proceeded to go ahead and make garments and say, well, we can always cut back. We can
Yes.
always, expand, but cutting back is a lot more easier than trying to expand. And I just moved forward because also the time frame. And I think on a project like this, it probably, I would say, many years ago when I first started in the industry, you would have had a year for costumes to prep because everything had to be totally built to those specifications, and it was no turning back. I
Yeah.
mean, look at even just to bring up a movie, Gone with the Wind, for
Yes.
example.
Yep.
The costumes were built and they cast the actress to go into the costumes. I mean, to fit those. So you
Wow.
don't really have that too much today,
Yeah.
but it was we just needed, I think, those kinds of parameters in order to move forward and just continue to make sure that we were ready, because everything was going to camera in what, 3 months, 3.5 months.
Yep. And for the record, I mean, you came in late. You were like the last hire. And again, I'm so grateful the pace at which you worked, the quickness in which you were able to assemble. I know you were on another film. Actually, I remember us prepping while you were on another film. So you know, and again, as you talk about the scale and the numbers of bodies, the background bodies, the principal cast, and the fact that our movie itself traverses 40 years alone
Right.
meant that, you know, we were constantly talking about, you know, what year this piece made sense, what year this piece had phased out and such. So, I mean, again, this is all just to give you your flowers and say, an amazing feat to come in that late and be able to turn that machine around. On that note, this is speaking to your eye and your how do I put it? Your specificity. Something came up, and I've codenamed it Lapel Gate for the audiences. So we're going to talk about Lapel Gate because this is where I went. Francine is a master of craft and specific to time, and would not take the low-hanging fruit or the easy way out. So let me, for the audience, let me break down Lapel Gate. So this is the scene that had to do with What About Love? It's our big sequence. It's like 30 or 40 piece orchestra on the stage. And we had originally, you know, when our fabulous production designer, Paul
Paul's
Astaberry,
wonderful set.
created that set, we quickly realized that if we went into Black garments, we would very quickly, you know, our
they would disappear.
They'll disappear. Exactly. Our orchestra will disappear. And so very quickly, we had to come up with an alternative, which was, okay, Miss Francine, what are we going to do now? We got to go white. Okay, well,
Yes.
this created a big issue because you can't easily find white suits.
In 1923.
1923.
Oh, my goodness,
okay,
yes.
You can easily find them. And certainly if you were going to find anything close, you wouldn't get the lapels. So herein created the problem. The problem was, how are we going to achieve this? And the realization came very late in the process. So we were, you know, going to camera in, you know, a couple of days. You know, it was a very, very short window for any adjustments to be made. And I remember you saying to me, Blitz, we have to change every lapel on these white costumes.
Because you really see pretty much from the waist up.
Yes.
And the tails, you know, the fullness of the trouser really didn't change as much, but
yes,
that lapel would have nailed us.
And what I and this is again to shout you out, is to say, you know, because my thing was, well, Francine, we might, you know, can we shoot around some people? Some of our people will be in the back. You might not see them. And you said, nope. As long as they're going to be on camera, the lapels have to be right, no matter how far and distant they are, no matter how close they are. And you kept your team working overnight for several days.
Oh, they were remarkable. They were absolutely remarkable. The tailor shop, the costume supervisor, Icy Parks, and we all thought, when we saw it on the screen, when we saw it the day of, it was breathtaking.
What happened to you?
No, I was just kicked by a mule.
Was this mule wearing a dress? You gonna be all right. Some women you just can't tame. What you need to do with that home you built is turn it into a smokehouse. You and me can grow some tobacco.
Yeah, well, maybe I was thinking maybe I'll turn it into a juke joint.
Juke joint?
Yeah.
Don't nobody wanna dance by no smelly swamp.
Right.
Not let Sugar Avery sing.
That's good, Celie. That's a good idea.
And so this kind of segues into a question around historical research, which seems to be a lost art for a lot of movies. We watch them and we go, that doesn't feel period correct, you know. And I say that, you know, I kind of gave that big background story to kind of ask you around like the importance of historical research for you as a creator.
Oh my, Blitz, I think for everyone, especially my fellow costume designers, I think most of us, 99% of us probably have our own in-house libraries, because we really have to. Books that I have gathered pretty much from all over the world. And because the historicity of it means so much to me, that we're just doing a service and to people of those styles that have been around for so many years, and they're so beautiful and gorgeous. We just have to make sure that they go on screen. So the research of it is wonderful. The costume houses that are the major ones, especially here in Los Angeles and in London, Italy, they all have in-house research libraries. And I don't think you can get around it. And just online companies like Pinterest, which is wonderful, just to recreate and give photographs and pictures of what those styles were and how they were worn with real people in that day. And when we started with Color Purple, starting in 1910, all the way to 1946,
Yep.
all of those periods have their own different silhouette.
Yes.
And you just can't get around that. I just felt there are some things that you can a little bit. You can go outside the box. Like I love how you do it, Blitz, with color. And certain things you just don't want to be rigid inside of something. So you will be able to have that vision, and the vision telling the story. And I love that aspect of it. But in the most part, when people view a film and you're saying, oh, that it's supposed to be of that era. So the audience is very sophisticated this day and age. They really know what is right and what isn't. So it's and doing this respectfully for my own union and people who have come before me that have trained me and taught me. And I just wanted to be a shining light to other people that are coming after me and those that have come before me. So it was just so, sometimes I think, I hope I'm not driving Blitz crazy.
No, but
trying to be so adamant about making it right.
No, and listen, the beauty of filmmaking is you are surrounded. First of all, I really believe in picking right. When you pick right, it's amazing what your team can inspire you to do, because you come in with a vision, right? And you remember, Francine, I had sketched all this stuff out.
I just thought I've never seen a director sketch out his own storyboard.
And we watched through them. And the beauty of that is, what I love to do is I love to give a world in which all my brilliant department heads can then shine within that world, and so I should remember, we never brought storyboards on set. It was all just to give us a world in which we could play in, and then the trust was always left with the department heads. And on that note, I kind of want to segue into our small inner circle of creators that we had an amazing big family, but it came down to a small group of, I'll say, the ones most in charge of the visual representation of the film, which was Dan Lawston, our DP, Paul Asterberry, our production designer, you, Francine, as our costumer, and her makeup team, Lauren, the brilliant Lawrence, and Miss Carol Rashid. And that team and of course Fatima Robinson as our kind of the glue that helped kind of all of us work together. And what I want to ask you about is, first of all, just how did this team influence your work? How did Dan's photography influence the fabrics you chose? How did Paul's beautiful design work influence the choices of color and such? How did, Carol and Lawrence's hair makeup work add hair-wise? What kind of hats would you choose based on hair and makeup? And then also, of course, Fatima Robinson as kind of her movement. How did that influence some of the pieces that you chose? So I want to throw it to you on that note.
Well, when we started in 1910, the dresses of the women, the men were always in trousers, and the trousers were always pretty much a kind of a full leg, or sometimes they were slimmed down a little bit in the turn of the century. But primarily the women were really setting a lot of the period, and usually women do. And the dresses of 1910, of the early 19th century, 1900s, were full enough for the women to be able to kick up. And I remember having meetings with Fatima, and we were talking about how and looking at a lot of the choreography and the rehearsals, what was going to go on as far as the dance. And I think that was really so important on how I proceeded to design each aspect or each era of the clothing for the dancers to move in. And then sometimes even, in the 20s, I had to come out of the box slightly from the period on what it was to make it a little bit more versatile and keeping it stylized for the dancers, because they were moving so quickly and moving around. So sometimes they weren't standing still, so you're not looking at a poster or something, but their movement was so important. And that was really the influence on a lot of the design. And Paul Austerberry and I just were constantly in cahoots, and Dan's photography constantly, because there are things that he would see through the camera that we don't see with the naked eye. And so it was wonderful. Just he would pull my coat to, well, Francine, maybe that's not going to really, the color is not going to work, or that hat may not work. And I go, okay, then let's do something different, because it was all about, I think, the cohesiveness of all of us coming together, Blitz, to have this beautiful vision. You're like the conductor of a symphony, and it's about really doing that. I mean, I remember working with Reginald Hudlin, who put it so eloquently. And he says,
amazing Reginald
director
Hudlin
is the conductor, and we are the individual artists that really come together and make that vision work. And this is what it really is about for me. I look at the director's, his or her vision, and we come together as a team. And it's just almost like a family in a way, at the time. And just really just we are inclusive of one another on what we do, and make sure that everything is known and upfront. And sometimes we may not have the time, or something comes up and we're racing to try and get it done. But ultimately, it's about all of us just coming together and being a group of artists, and having and making something so wonderful and just timeless. Amazing. And that's what The Color Purple is. I think Alice Walker's beautiful novel, beautiful story, says it all in that one particular saying that Suge says God gets pissed off if you go by the color purple and not really pay attention. And I think this is what it really is about. You know, it's a force that had guided all of us, I think. And look at what it came to.
I laid you out something. Oh, that's fancy. This ain't me. Hush. Put it on. You gonna be my guest tonight. We need to look like we belong.
Well, it's been amazing and incredible talking to you, Francine. Our work together is, as you said, hopefully going to inspire new groups coming up.
I'm sure it is,
A
Blitz. I
new
mean, you are
generation.
such an inspiration.
Thank you.
You're just so young. You're so talented. I mean, I'm just eager to see all other things that's coming up for you
Amazing.
because this movie is you did a brilliant, brilliant job.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Blitz Bazawule, the director of The Color Purple, and I just had the incredible privilege of talking to my esteemed costume designer, the great Francine Jamison-Tanchuck.
Thank you so much, Blitz.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.